going to start to not lose too much time. It's almost 5 minutes past the hour. So I will share my screen and do a little introduction, because this is the last session that we have. And of course, we are going to continue with this if we have enough interest in the program, but we will keep that for later. So this is the final session, and this is how it all started. We started in already kind of in the beginning of this, not in the beginning of last year, but around June, with master classes that we did, and then gradually we went into this program, and we are now here at the latest one, scenario planning, foresight models, scenario models, and then the final town hall. That is our panel that we have today, and then the next steps that I will talk about with Eva and Tarek. Jerry is the chairman, the CEO of the Millennium Project, which is a Foresight Institute, and I'm one of the Node chairman, which is in the Netherlands. And we know each other already quite some time, Jerome and I, and we met first in Dubai. And I remember still the glass of beer that we had, Jerry, and the good and deep conversations already, the first meeting that we had. And I remember that always, and all the time when Jerry visited Dubai or when I was in Washington, we are meeting up and have always good and deep discussions.
I guess a little tiny introduction. The idea of the Millennium Project was hatched toward the 1980s. And the thought was that the year 2000 would occur, and journalists would put microphones in our mouth that morning. And if we had too much to drink the night before, we might say something stupid. So we thought, what should futurists do about this year 2000 coming up? And the answer was, we will create a global system to do global futures research on an ongoing basis to help organize humanity's thinking about the future. Scenarios. I had the pleasure of working with Herman Kahn, and knowing him personally, who invented scenarios. The reason that they were invented, let's see, scenarios by company. Oh, we go. Yeah, okay. The reason they were invented was because after World War II, Rand Corporation was invented to prevent World War III. Because if you have a thermonuclear war, we wouldn't be here today. So how do you prevent that? Now, the trouble is when you had people who were military historians, they keep thinking about cost effect of war in a way that you're still there tomorrow. After World War II, Germany's still there, Japan's still there, etc. But in World War III, we're not there. So the whole risk, the whole way of decision-making was different. We'd never been there. So how do you deal with the unknowns? And to make a long story short, the answer was you write alternative stories. And as you write a story, you say, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that. So you start to expand your mind into areas that you didn't think were possible, that now you see are maybe possible because of the if-then relationship of a story that evolves. So that's how they were invented. Classic scenarios are three. One, surprise-free. Business as usual, sometimes called a reference scenario, base case scenario. That's got different names, but it's basically a simple extrapolation of current trends, the dynamics at play. And that's a good thing to do, because a lot of times, it's like, for example, people will say there's so much change happened in 10 years ago and the same amount of change in 10 years. No, if it's exponential change, the growth of the next 10 years is a lot different than the last 10 years. Second one, the worst case scenario. You gotta know the horrors that you're gonna have to defeat. But it's based upon both mismanagement and bad luck. For example, we have just had some bad luck with the virus. The virus mutated in such a way that it's spreading all over the world. I understand that half of Europe is getting it. Now, that's bad luck because it could have mutated in a way that wasn't so transmissible. You know, that we didn't have some control over. So luck is, you got to consider what are the possibilities for luck as well. And of course, bad management. That's what you guys are looking at. How do you have good management in these situations? Because sometimes you have bad management. Like in the United States, we had bad management under the previous administration on the virus. Now we got some better management, hopefully. In the work technology scenarios that you'll see, each of those, as were the virus scenarios, were 10 pages of detail. When you write a story, 10 pages on something, you're going to have ideas cross your mind that were not there before. I guarantee you will have new ideas. That's the value, key value of this. So we did one called It's Complicated and Mixed Bag. I won't dwell on this because you're going to be getting a copy of this sort of stuff before. And I would ask you actually to read these things. They're really good. They are rich in detail. As Paul pointed out, I've been doing this for a long time in a lot of different areas. I have pulled together an awful lot of stuff. So if nothing else, it's a good thing for just general futures possibilities. Now, certain events will come up in your mind and you're writing along, and you're not sure about the consequences. So you'd use a futures wheel. You put the event or the trend in the middle, and then you just want pencil and paper on your desk, and you say, okay, what are the primary consequences? People are usually very good about the primary consequences, no big deal. But then you say, forget about the middle, and then say, okay, of these primary consequences, what happens after that? What happens with each, like, you know, on a pond, you throw a rock in a pond and ripples comes out. Well, things are like that. So then what are the secondary consequences? And then what are the tertiary consequences? And this is where you're starting to do futures thinking. But everybody knows the primary consequences of something. That's why you do them. You know, that's not a big deal. But when people say they're blindsided by something or their business failed because they forgot about this thing over there, how do you find about the thing over there? You use a futures wheel. That's how it helps you organize it. And it's a good idea to do it with several people. You can do it by yourself, but it's a good idea it is very popular for futures to use in workshops. So you have group thinking, pull us together. So you have a more expansive thinking of the consequences.
The reason that we brought scenario planning and scenarios in this program is that that companies underestimate the power of it. And the last couple of slides that Jerome showed is probably the biggest problem. We don't have time. And if you don't have time, well, why should I bother about the future so far away?
How do you like that idea of saying, but you do have time to rush into a bad decision?
Exactly. And I never forget that was years ago. I mean, maybe 30 years ago. The KLM had a brilliant quote or statement. Why is it that we always have time and money enough to repair mistakes, and we never ever have time nor money to prevent them? Right. And so they put a lot of effort in all kinds of programs to prevent mistakes, and scenarios is such a way to do that. I'd like to bring in Satyan and have a little chat with Satyan, because what we are going to do is, and that is what the promise that we made to people is the certification. And Satyan, lead us through this certification and how the idea is.
Fundamentally, the certificate is for those who have attended the sessions. And we found that, you know, we're dealing with some really busy people, professionals and really senior people. So we thought, well, let's not make it compulsory for people to be on time, like a classroom or a school. So we said, okay, we will now provide you with the recordings. So you will already have a link in your mailboxes where to access the recordings. If not, you're going to get another email tomorrow or in a day. Go through those recordings and participate. The next step is obviously the certificate of participation. You will get some instructions in your email box, and the steps are going to be, you will be having a quick registration, verify your email, and then enroll yourself for a quick small test. It shouldn't take more than 10 minutes, to be honest, for you to take that test. And as soon as you complete, you will be able to download your certificate, as you can see on the screen, from the software itself. So that's as simple as that. And we're going to give you a PDF with the screenshots and the instructions. So don't try to remember anything, or I'm not going to provide you any link right now in the chat box. It's all going to be in your email box in a day or two with all the instructions.
Paula, Eva, and Dr. Lamia. But before we are starting, ladies, with our panel discussion and conversation, I would also ask Karen to pull up the polls, because we are going to use the polls also as the input for the discussions.
This whole program, this wonderful program, is all about preparing women for leadership roles, and particularly that on the board and executive roles. And of course, we're all familiar with the term, the glass ceiling. And of course, some of the content of this program has been talking about the external pressures on that glass ceiling, preventing women from realizing their potential. But not only from my own personal experience, but also from clients that we involve ourselves with, that there is also the prevention of breaking through the glass ceiling that comes from within. And as you said, Paul, I described it as self-sabotage, or you could call it a sort of the imposter syndrome, this belief that I'm really not worthy. I doubt whether I can achieve this, and therefore I'm not going to go ahead with the path in front of me.
I could relate to a certain extent. Thank you so much, Paula, for putting all well put. It's always difficult to go a second because all the amazing stuff has already been said. So I'm not going to add so much to what Paula said. She's done a great job, and because we've been through the same probably experiences, whether we're in the Arab world or the Asian world or even the Western world. We read the statistics, and they're not very shockingly, they're not very different. Women in leadership, I don't think exceed 20% across the globe. So I might share my experience, but just because storytelling, I believe in storytelling and the power of storytelling. There's 3 different kinds of leadership positions that I've experienced, whether it's in the academic field or the research field, be a PI of a group, male dominant group, and teaching as well in a male dominant academic faculty of science, and also leading the Ahad Foundation, which is also predominantly male dominant. Maybe one of the things that I would share is that it's very important, as Paula said, is to believe in your value, to believe in your self-worth, to invest in your strengths, because I wouldn't say any gender is more important than the other. I want to make it very clear that we complement each other. We don't compete with each other. We're just like jigsaw puzzle, where every person plays their role, whether you're male or female. And I genuinely believe in that, because every gender brings a different set of skills on the table. So it's very important to complement these skills. And I think now management realizes the importance of having female on, whether it's on the boards or whether it's on upper management. I sit on several boards, whether it's in Oman or across, even in Washington. And I can see there's more acceptance now. It's much easier than it was in the past. What really helps is to have role models. So it's really important that female role models do come out and speak about their experiences, because when I was in a younger age, let's say when I was still in high school, there were not enough role models. Not that they're not present, they were not outspoken. So they would be there, but we wouldn't hear of their successes and their achievements. So we would say like, oh, there's no room in Oman for growth. So I come from the Gulf region, from Oman. And Oman is one of the countries that empowered females a very, very long time. His Majesty Sultan Qaboos has empowered the females, and we've sat in the cabinets for very long years, since the early 80s and the late 70s. So I would say that helps. Having role models in upper management helps, but we need to be advocates, because
Lamia,
we need to support each other.
Who is your role model?
Who is my role model? It's a male, actually. It's Sheikh Khalfan Al-Aysari. And one of the reasons why actually he is my role model is because he empowered females. So he was one of those cool religious guys. So normally people have an impression about religious people that they're very strict, but he's one of those. He passed away 4 years ago. And I still feel like he lives within us, around us, because he was just so touching. He had very high emotional intelligence. That's one of the skills that females have. And this is not my words. This is what research showed during COVID, when the response of the countries showed that the best countries in response to COVID were the countries led by female presidents.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
So this is the research. So basically, emotional intelligence was the highlight.
Eva, who is your role model?
Well, good question. I would say spontaneously, I will choose someone who is very, very young, and who has, for me and for young girls in general, documented that let's say from the age of 15 or 17, you can actually start to become a role model and grow in this role. Her name is Linda Liukas. And then I would like to come back to this theme also of the issue of self-sabotage, that yes, in the past, this, I think, was a crucial issue. But in reality, I think it has very much to do with self-confidence. And the young girls of today, I think they are much better off, because they have due to the availability of digital tools, they have a much stronger belief in themselves and in promoting not just their business, but their network and everything they do. Having said that, Paul, if you allow me to say 2 more additional words, I would like to add one, leadership communication and intercultural communication, because I definitely believe that environments like the one we are gathered in today, they really show that women from all parts of the world have a complementary knowledge on which we can capitalize if we interact much more than we have done in the past. And another area where I think it is important to have a proactive mentality is really having the guts to say no in certain situations, and understanding what is your core focus of your business, or what you want to achieve, and standing up for it.
There are 2 sides to this. On the one side, it is very positive to have women on those boards, and people's perception is very strong. But there's also research on the exact opposite side, which basically is that because a lot of the people who are valuing companies are men, when they see women on boards, they'll say, oh, they will make a lot of soft decisions and so on. And those companies are generally valued lower than the one which are more predominantly men, which is a very unfortunate situation, but it is a reality because, and they made this was a Harvard Business case study that I read. They had made did this research where they basically said that where women are on many boards, the general perception is this is going to be a soft and fluffy company.
Yeah.
Therefore, we shouldn't really be investing in this because we need hardcore, go out there, make money and get results. So I think there's a complete education and re-education and relearning exercise that needs to be done rather than just moving one dial. I think there are two dials that have to be calibrated simultaneously.